Hello there everybody, this is Jorge Varela for thebuttonsmashers.com, and here's our video review of God Eater 2 Rage Burst for PS4 and PS Vita. So, short version. It's really good. I've never played a God Eater game before, but I still felt it easy to get into. Initially, it felt impenetrable to me, but the way that the game is really good at slowly acquainting you with the vast amounts of ways to customize yourself for battle is really helpful. If you're looking for a Monster Hunter style game with a bit more style, then get this. The sound department could be better though, but we'll get to that later. Now, here's the long version of the review. It's almost impossible to review a game like God Eater 2 Rage Burst without having to constantly refer to Monster Hunter, but I'll try to talk about this game's own merits and how it sticks out from the typical Japanese hunting games out there without mentioning it too many times. So here we go. This is actually my very first time ever playing a God Eater game, but I've dabbled with games like Freedom Wars and the PSP game Monster Hunter Freedom Unite before. Nah, I already broke my own rule there, I just said Monster Hunter. Well, forget about it. This is a game that might feel a little overwhelming at first, but by letting go of that fear, you realize that the game does nothing but to help you out. God Eater 2 Rage Burst is an expanded HD port of the original PSP and PS Vita game, which takes place 3 years after the first one, in which humanity is tasked with eliminating these enormous monsters known as Aragami. Your customizable protagonist, along with a frequent flow of new characters, is determined to fight these enemies, one stereotypical anime cutscene at a time. The setup is fairly simple, and not a lot happens for a large amount of time, but it definitely starts to get more interesting later on. I only wish it didn't take forever for cool stuff to actually happen. During all this time, you meet a ton of different characters that can range from very interesting and pleasant to talk with, or Jar Jar Binks in anime form that got his name changed to Romeo instead. Since the true story doesn't really kick in until halfway through, Persona 3 style, most of your time will be spent in casual conversations that tend to go nowhere. Comedy bits or some sort of motivating speech that I can barely hear because the sound quality of the voices are terrible and the background music is way too loud and inappropriate at its default level. I don't know why, but all the voices on the PS4 version sound like they're coming out of an old radio, while I've seen videos of the PC version where they sound perfectly fine. This is a shame, since it's constantly distracting and makes the cutscenes worse. A lot of these cutscenes would actually be decent had they not had such a dead execution to the voices. On top of that, no matter how simple the situation is, I always find myself struggling with the music, which always sounds like you're about to meet God himself and punch him in the face before you take your throne as the one true God to bring eternal peace to all life forms of the universe, never to experience sadness ever again. Is that epic? And it's funny, since I can barely remember any of the combat missions having music as overblown as the ones in the cutscenes. Don't worry though, the sound is probably the only bad thing I have to say about the game. The rest of it is actually really good. From a game that I thought would be impossible to understand, it actually does a fantastic job of letting you play at your own pace, and holding your hand until you feel comfortable with all the different systems available. The game is so helpful to the point that one of the captain characters became a running joke for me, since he was always very insistent in talking to me about how guns work. For example, there's a moment where a brand new character comes in and he gets into a fight with another character, and after all of that gets patched up, he's like, oh yes, I'm really happy these guys, are at peace once more. Anyway, want to talk about guns again? Like, what? Where did your deal with you and guns? But anyway, there's even a database that pretty much has everything you would ever want to know about anything at all, which is great for giving yourself a quick refresher course. You ever forget something, just go to the database and it'll probably explain it to you. I think players will definitely need that, since there is a ton of stuff you can do to prepare for battle, but you don't necessarily have to do all of it. There is a shop where you can purchase items, armor, etc., but you can also craft many things like weapons, upgrades, and even kinds of bullets for your projectile weapon. Bullets in particular contain a fairly deep system, and what I can only describe as the player essentially programming how the bullets will react, move, and look. It can get so highly specific that I actually just decided to buy all of my bullets rather than going through all of that. Of course, if you wish to craft, then go ahead, but I don't see myself making a lot of bullets, especially when I'm more of a close-up melee kind of player. This is where the game really shines for me though. It would have been bad if I was forced to understand the system, but I don't have to, which makes the game much more accessible for people like myself that would rather not pay attention to those complexities. Even in battle, I can fight mostly by walking up to enemies and mashing the attack button until they fall over, while occasionally healing. On the other hand, if I take the time to craft and upgrade my stuff, on top of figuring out what the best fighting style is for me, all missions become much more deep and rewarding when everything falls into place. This is especially true later on, where your team is much bigger and the monsters become much more challenging, creating battles that can only become incredibly intense and nail-biting. The last time I ever felt this way was when I was playing Valkyria Chronicles, staring at all my units as if they were chess pieces waiting for my next move. Of course, it only took me a really long while to get there, so I had loads of time to learn everything necessary for that kind of scenario. Overall, I think this is a pretty great game, all things considered. For something that is supposed to be a port of a PSP game, it certainly doesn't look or feel like it at all. It feels right at home with the PS4, with all of its style, color, depth, fun gameplay, and complexity. For anybody that would love to see a Monster Hunter game for consoles again, this is probably the closest thing you'll be able to find right now. Even though the sound could use some work and it takes too long for the story to get interesting, it's still a pretty solid package and will leave you playing for a long time. Thank you very much for watching. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to give this video a like. And of course, you can go to our website, thebuttonsmasher.com. We do news, we do reviews, and if you're a fan of podcasts, then be sure to visit that site because we have a lot of them. All of that content is created by really fun people that love what they do, so we highly appreciate your support.